Happy New Year, everybody. 2022 hardly seems possible, does it, that the time has gone? But we really are in a new year. And we're going to continue with our study, looking at the early ministry of Jesus' life. And we're in Luke 4. I'm just going to read the tail end of the last passage and the beginning of the new passage. Luke 4, and I'm going to start reading at 28, but our passage goes all the way to verse 44, the end of the chapter. Just going to read a little bit. So all the people in the synagogue, that's in Nazareth, were furious when they heard his teaching, that's Jesus' teaching. They got up, drove him out of the town and took him to the brow of the hill where the town was built in order to throw him off the cliff, but he walked through them unhurt. And that's amazing, isn't it? He had this negative, violent reaction to what he had to say, and they rejected him, but he walked through the crowd. Then he goes out to Capernaum, reading from 31, a town in Galilee. And on the Sabbath he taught the people, and they were all amazed at his teaching, because his words had authority. And he has a very different experience in Capernaum, where they accept him. So the writer of our devotional centres on the authority that Jesus is mentioned to have had. He spoke with authority. He acted with authority. He also notes that Jesus recharges his battery at the end of this section by going to have some alone time with God. And perhaps there's a little hint of where his authority or his power comes from, and that he's spending time with God. But it's noteworthy that those in Capernaum repeatedly said he spoke with authority, and they listened and responded as a result. But the reason that I read the previous section was the different reaction he had in Nazareth. What, did Jesus not speak with authority in that place? Well, no, of course he did. But their reaction was different. Just because you hear words of authority doesn't necessarily mean you're going to accept them. And that's the point. Initially, of course, they did respond well. In verse 22, it says, they all spoke well of him and were amazed at his gracious words and said, is this Joseph's son? Can this be? But it's a story very much of, if you like, a tale of two synagogues. A tale of two regions, Nazareth and Capernaum. But it was the same authoritative Jesus, the same person. If you remember, he goes to Nazareth and gives his mission statement to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim the good news, to proclaim freedom for prisoners, recovery of sight to the blind, to set the oppressed free, and so on, as quoted by Isaiah, prophesying that this is what the Messiah would do. But he also tells them in Nazareth that he knows that their blinkered hearts will not accept him or recognize him. After all, a prophet is not recognized in his hometown. However, Jesus says, Gentiles and lepers will accept him because they are more open. And they couldn't handle being told that. And they try and do away with him. Of course, Jesus escapes. But what a different reaction he gets in Capernaum. He teaches in the synagogue in the morning. They receive his teaching with amazement. They watch while demons recognize the power of Jesus and are expelled. And after that, he leaves. He goes to Simon Peter's house where he heals his mother-in-law. And at sunset, the people come to him with people to be healed, and he heals them. And early next morning, Jesus goes somewhere quiet to pray. But the people are ready for more. They follow him. And they plead with him to stay. But Jesus explains that he has to go forward and spread the good news of the gospel. But what a different reaction we have from Nazareth and Capernaum. And what strikes me in this whole chapter is that tale of two synagogues. The same Jesus with the same power to heal, the same authority, met with two different responses. We can't help but be challenged, can we? To think, what is my response to Jesus? With those two possible reactions. To accept and recognize who Jesus is, that he has authority to speak into my life and the power to bless my life. Or to reject him, even though he has words of authority, to say, no, I'm not having that in my life. And the writer of our devotional asks us to imagine what it would have been like to be in that crowd listening to Jesus. How would you have felt? How would you have responded? and what would you have done? And pray, following the example of Jesus, to try and spend time alone with God today, getting to know him better. And the implication is that Jesus looked to God for the source of his power and authority. And we can do the same. So we'll leave it there. Thank you for listening. Happy New Year once again. God bless. Bye for now.